Welcome everyone. Today I thought I'd come out to one of my favourite places near home and tell the story about where this GQ came from. I'm going to go through the whole story from start to finish. So at the start of 2020, I bought a 92 GQ Patrol wagon for $8,000. It was super neat on the outside, but there was heaps of gremlins on the inside. It was originally a TB42 that had been swapped pretty poorly, to be honest. So it was stuff that I just had to deal with slowly over time. It was NA when I bought it, and it wasn't so bad, but you'd start the hill at 100 and by the top of it you'd be doing 60 sort of thing. So yeah, the first thing I ever did was cut the guards and make the 35s fit. I had no interest in lifting it. All I wanted was for it to be capable, and in my opinion, bigger tyres make it more capable. Lifting your car, like, I don't know, it doesn't interest me. I'd rather have diff clearance, especially down here in Tassie. I was hoping to be able to deal with it being NA. I wanted it to be NA. I couldn't be bothered turboing it, and so I took it forward driving, and I quickly realised that it just didn't have the wheel speed. You'd get to the end of a bog hole and the thing would start to bog down. I didn't even have the snorkel hooked up either, so I thought I'd hit two birds with one stone, turbo it, and, you know, hook the snorkel up and make it all work. And so I went onto Marketplace and I found just a HT18, which is the factory turbo for GU. It was a second-hand one with some intercooler piping and a plasma manned intercooler, and that piping and intercooler is what's still in it today. It was second-hand. The same as most TD owners would find. As soon as I turboed it, it immediately started slipping the clutch. While I knew my way around a car somewhat, I wasn't confident in doing the clutch by myself, and so I enlisted the help of Bailey, who came over. He did some firewall modifications that have made it a lot easier to drop the gearbox every time since.
I made that 100 times better again.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Like that. So we had a trip coming up, which was going to be the first trip that I was going to do in this car, and I had to hook the snorkel up. I got just like an enclosed pod filter, some pipe work off eBay, $100 bull bar off Marketplace, borrowed a winch, and I went on that trip. And honestly, it was wicked. Like, it was one of the most reliable cars on the trip. I didn't have any issues really. When I turboed it, I did it in a weekend, did it super quick, didn't use new gaskets, didn't like get a new dump pipe, new exhaust, anything like that. We just sort of welded it and botched together a system. And so after that trip, I went through and put proper multi-layer steel gaskets through it. I bought a proper exhaust. And so while I was there, I maxed out the 10mm pump and just kept the boost at about 20 PSI. You know, if you're just a weekend warrior looking to be able to do 110 on the highway and have enough power to have fun and hit bog holes, then that's really all you need. From that point onwards, my other car was simply never getting driven again. I loved this thing. I dailied it, went on so many trips. It was so much fun, and you couldn't keep me out of this thing. Trip after trip, it just continued to prove to me that this was the way to go, and that it was time to probably sell my other car, which was a Navara, by the way. And so dailying it every day, like, it started to get pretty manky because I filled it with water a few times, and so the carpet was getting grotty, the door cards were starting to warp and go funny. I nicked some vinyl off my mate who was currently wrecking one, and I made my own door cards out of just some cheap whiteboard from Bunnings, and it meant that I could just hose it out and wipe the door cards out and didn't have to worry about them storing mud and dirt and everything anymore. The next thing that started happening was overheating. I took it on the beach a few times and I noticed it was starting to get warm. When I bought it, it had this 3-core eBay alloy radiator in it and a broken shroud, and half the fins were missing on the fan. And so I went on Quick As and I got a fan, thermostat, radiator, shroud, completely overhauled the cooling system. And from that point onwards, the temps have never got hot. Originally, the Navara was going to be the Tourer, and this was going to be the car that I sent annually through the $1,000 track with the boys. All of this was leading up to a $1,000 trip that we had planned. My nabby was going to be Jonesy. He was currently building a set of rock sliders for his car, and so I asked him if he could make an extra set for me. The other thing that I got warned about was steering. I've heard of mates in there bending steering arms, breaking steering boxes. I sorted myself a Series 2 steering box, which is the stronger GQ box. So I got solid comp steering arms from Superior and put the Series 2 box on. And so then it was ready to go through the $1,000 track. I got through there relatively unscathed. I think I did an alternator and a water pump pulley. You know, putting that big new fan on in the deep water is pretty hard on those water pump pulleys. I've done 2 water pumps in there now. God knows how many alternators. Keeping in mind that this was still just 35s and steering arms pretty much. Like, I didn't lock it, I didn't even lift it. The thing was super low and just capable. But yeah, that was a wicked trip, and it absolutely sealed the deal that this was the car that I wanted to continue building. When I did the water pump, I noticed there was a lot of pitting behind it, and that's a common problem with TDs, and so I decided to just pull the whole lot off and replace the timing cover. Through all that deep water, one thing that was in the back of my mind the whole time was hydrolocking the car, and so I decided it was time to do a proper snorkel and airbox, and so I got a stainless steel snorkel built and an airbox as well, got the turbo piping adjusted, and then I, had peace of mind that water wasn't going to get in. So time went on, and I hated the look of that bull bar that was on there. The front hoop just pissed me off, it looked gross. And so Tom had a Zook that had like a nice hoop on it, and I can't remember why, but he wasn't using that bar anymore, and so I asked him if I could cut the hoop off, so I did and welded it to my bar. The car was actually looking really neat. And going forward driving one weekend at the Jeep track, we had a car slip off the edge. In a panic, I had to go and turn around to be a winch on the front of him, and as I was coming back, one of the other cars had actually followed me, and so just due to the situation and not communicating, I actually hit him head on and completely ruined the front of this car. That just pissed me off more than anything. So yeah, all the work that I'd done to make it look nice had just gone out the window. I spent the next 2 weeks driving all over the state, finding the right colour guard, the right colour bonnet, buying a new grille. I ordered a Patrol Doctor bull bar and decided that if I was going to fix this thing, I was going to make it how I wanted it and spend the money and bring it back better than ever. I remember on one trip to Sandy Cape, I did a water crossing and parked up at the top of the hill and got this horrible fuel knock. And at the time, it scared the crap out of me, whether it was just a bit of water in the fuel or I let the tank get a bit low and it got a bit of air in it. I decided it was time to overhaul the fuel system because it had joins in the hose, the fuel filter wasn't mounted properly, so I put new lines through it, new injectors, new spill rail. So, mechanically sound and slowly ironing out all the gremlins, I decided for no other reason than just wanting flex, and because I'd always loved the look of those Superior radius arms under 4-wheel drives. I got a full 2-inch Hyperflex Superior kit, bolted it all up myself in the driveway just with a high lift jack and a bit of elbow grease. The shocks and coils they sent didn't really suit to start with, and so after a bit of dialing in, trying different coils, different shocks, different bump stops, I finally got it to a point where I was happy with the flex, happy with the ride, happy with the height. And then it was just time to do more bulk trips, and so we did a trip to the West Coast. thought I'd fixed the issue when I did the timing cover, but obviously I didn't, and it was actually coming from the head gasket. And it wasn't overheating, it was just pushing coolant into the overflow and not sucking it back. So I did the research, bought the head gasket. I didn't want any downtime, so I bought a brand new turbo head off Patrol Apart and put a new head on it, and I had the whole thing, you know, sorted and running again within 24 hours. Another thing I noticed on trips, the only indicators on the back of the car were in the rear bar, and so they would always fill up with crap and stop working, and I would be constantly fixing them. And so I decided it was time to go to Series 1 tail lights that have the indicator up high, get rid of that factory bumper, and I got a rear bar from Patrol Doctor and done the quarter chop, which is one of the best things you can do to a GQ in my opinion. And so it was that time of year again where we were going to be doing the $1,000 track, and this time I wanted a way to keep everything up out of the water, and so I put a set of rear drawers in the back, and I built a platform instead of having back seats that I could put my fridge and pantry and everything above. So again, in the $1,000 track, it did go well, but I was with cars that were twin locked. I just had that fading LSD, and you cannot beat a locked car. It's just a fact. Lockers are king. You feel tough, don't you? Yeah. You feel it, don't you? You can fucking feel it. I like switchable lockers, and I had air lockers in my last car, so I decided I wanted to try one of the e-lockers. Because it would be my first time building a diff, I didn't really want to screw around with the ones that were in there, and so I bought 2 complete housings so that I could build the lockers into them, and then just lift these ones out, lift the locker in, and so if there was a problem, I could just go back to my LSD. The bonus being that I also got spare CV, spare hubs, all that kind of stuff as well. So I start doing more trips. I finally decide that I wanted to see what all the fuss was about with bigger pumps and bigger turbos. And so I decided to get a UFI 200 pump and an Arashi 18G. I got the pump, put it on, put the turbo on, and chucked it on the dyno, and initially it made 200 horse and 600 Newton meters, and that was only at about 25 PSI. As we all do, I got greedy, and I think by the end of it had 3 of the 4 shims out of the pump, so God knows what it was making, but it was beeping off my red arc gauge, which went to 30 PSI, and it was still sooting plenty, so it would have been up there for sure. That was fun while it lasted, but I don't even think it made it a service interval before I started getting this horrible feeling through the clutch and knew what had happened. So I pulled the engine out, stripped it down, and found that there was a big crack at number 6. And so that was engine gone. Luckily, I'd actually bought, it was an old Maverick Leafy Ute with a silver top. It had about 400,000 Ks on it, and the engine seemed to run alright, but when I stripped it down to start putting it into my car, it was full of sludge, and not long after putting it into my car, it developed a tick. It was burning oil. Was just getting louder and louder and louder, and 2 minutes later I got up around the corner and it just threw a rod out the block. She's all over Red Rover, boys. And again, I don't think that was even a service interval from the last engine that it blew. So yeah, it blew 2 engines within sort of 10,000 Ks. So there I was, I'd blown up 2 engines in a row, and we had a trip to Cape York planned. So I scrounged all the stuff from the 2 engines that were okay to use, just all the bits from the bottom end to be balanced and built. It got to like a month from the Cape, and they were just saying, you know, 2 more weeks, and I just got a notification from Patroller Parts saying that they had long engines in stock, and I panic bought a crate motor from Patroller Part, which was 15 grand. The long engine didn't actually take that long to get here. I think it was like 3 or 4 days. I obviously dialed the power back a lot to be sensible, and I put about 4,000 Ks on it, just doing trips with mates and stuff before the Cape, so that I knew that I could trust it and that it was going to be reliable. My rear locker was going okay at the time, so I thought I'd buy another e-locker and put it in the front, so then I was twin locked. I now run ARB lockers. That's a whole other story that I'm not going to get into here. My setup for the Cape was super simple, but I stand by it. It was awesome. It was extremely livable. Starting the back, pillows up there, swag, oil, coolant, chainsaw, power tools, chair, kitchen stuff. Tools and spares. Spares in here. Fridge, pantry, clothes, battery charger, air compressor and battery, camp oven, recovery gear, jack, all that. Oven, fire extinguisher, just random bits and bobs in these. I just slept on a swag and stretcher. I hate stuff on the roof on GQs especially, because it's just a way for crap to build up in those gutters and rust out. But yeah, simple setup worked. I didn't even have aircon. It was windowed down and jumping in creeks wherever possible to cool down. So we bombed up to Cairns pretty quick. We wanted to just get up there and get it done sort of thing. And so we stayed at Cairns for a couple of nights, did all our shopping to last us 2 weeks above the Jardine. And yeah, we made our way towards Cooktown and then across Battle Camp Road over to the PDR. And then made our way straight to the teletrack. You know, what needs to be said about the old teletrack? I think I'll just play some clips.
Right up, right hand down a little bit, right hand down, right hand down.
we did absolutely everything we could up there, including Usher Point, Cape Flattery, and on our way back down we came across the Creb Track, which was wicked. Bob's Hill is gnarly in person. Sorry, the sun's just starting to come through those trees, which is really nice, but it's in my eyes. So after we left the Cape, we stopped back at Cairns, and then after we were rested and restocked, we made our way to Fraser Island.
Yo, get the speaker box loud, hitting that stuff till you hearing that sound.
After Fraser, the group split up and half went to Noosa to just chill, and 3 of us went to Glasshouse to do some wheeling. Without really knowing the area, we just started at one end of the power lines and then ended at the Reds. My starter motor was hating life. I remember nearly every time I started the car, I had to do it with what I call my big key, which is basically just a tyre iron that I shorted out the exciter with.
Big key. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Fuck, she's on her last legs, eh? Do it in the dirt, guys. Shout out to Nathan and Jeff. You teased me for this, still to this day. But we spent 3 days trying to do Little Red. We got across the whole power line successfully. And I remember on the first day, we broke 4 CVs between us.
You've broken a CV. You've broken a CV.
On the second day, we broke 2 CVs between us.
Small wins, mate. Small wins.
Yeah, small wins.
And on the third day, we all drove it. I don't know why, but I just couldn't work it out. I was also having rear locker issues. I was watching videos of the car on the second night and only one rear tyre was spinning. I just had 2 bunny ears sticking out the top of the diff because it had obviously been ripped out. I'll come back up and I'll have to give it another crack, especially now that I've got the GU diffs. After Glassy, I left the boys, hightailed it down to meet Tyler, and that is the trip that you see me with Pete from Ultimate 9 and Tyler. If you haven't seen that series yet, go and check it out because it is awesome. I spent a week with Tyler in Victoria, and so that's the trip that Tyler actually convinced me to give YouTube a proper go. And so yeah, I got home, I think the bottom end was finally finished, and so I built that, put all that together and wrapped it up real nice. So yeah, if anyone's ever in Tassie with a TD and you blow it up, sing out because I've got a TD sitting there ready to go, all built to turbo spec with ARP head studs. Shout out. And so on that mainland trip, I broke 5 or 6 CVs in total. And so it was just time for GU diffs. And I also wanted to go to 37s. I had people telling me that GU diffs were the way to go, but I only ever do things to my car when things become a problem. 5 or 6 CVs in, a month is a problem. And so I went to GU diffs and I'll never turn back. It was one of the best things I ever did. The same 2 CVs that are in here now are the ones that I put in when I rolled the diffs under the car in the first place. After I went to the 37s, I wanted to send it one more time through the $1,000 track as a wagon, and so that's actually the first video that ever went on my channel. And so if you go back to the start of my channel, you'll see that trip where it's still a wagon, and that takes you up to where my channel started. I don't know, it's a story that I wanted to tell because it's not just something that I stripped down and bolted the best of everything to all at once. It's something that evolved over time. Best thing that you can do is go and wheel it, figure out what you need. As I said at the start of this video, the first thing I did was cut the guards and bolt 35s to it, and then I went wheeling. You slowly realize what you need rather than what people tell you you need. But anyway, that's this car's whole life. Thanks for watching. I'm probably going to enjoy the rest of this day out here in the bush, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.